Hello, my name is Brittany Lovell, and this is my journey through code. Hello, my name is Brittany Lovell. I am a solutions developer in the software engineering branch at Avanade, and I'm also a Georgia State alum.
Hey, okay. So I'm curious to find out, how did you first get into computing?
So my story is a bit interesting because I didn't study computer science.
Yeah.
I learned from a friend who got me interested. I did take one computer science course at Georgia State and I hated it. But my friend made it really interesting. He taught me how to do a lot of cool stuff, and then I decided, let me kind of learn on my own. So I got on like all the free websites and started learning by myself how to code in Java and C# and stuff like that. And so I decided to kind of like join communities that did coding and hackathons and stuff like that. And when I got to my graduate program, I was actually enrolled in the Digital Learners to Leaders program.
Oh, okay.
So I participated in that and did my first hackathon, and I fell in love. And I was like, you know what, let me just try. So I went to the career fair, a tech career fair, and found Avanade.
Yeah.
And everyone else at the career fair kind of looked at me strange. They're like, oh, you study what? And but Avanade didn't, and they just gave me a chance. And so here I am.
Oh my gosh, that's really awesome. I know I've met like a lot of people who are thinking of switching or getting into like computing without a degree. Do you have like any advice for them, like how to get started
Right.
or what they could do, and even like how to just get past that imposter syndrome and just go ahead and just do it?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Just go ahead and just do it. And even after I started learning by myself, even after I started working, I still had imposter syndrome. I was like, what am I doing here? I studied criminal justice. Why am I in a tech role? But it's not as, I don't want to say it's not as hard because it's difficult, but if you have a passion for it, if you like to do it, then it's worth it. Just give it a shot. Get on those free sites. See if you can do something, build something, and just keep going. Find people like you and hang out with them.
Oh, okay, that's pretty awesome. I'm also curious to find out, now that you like in the computer science world or in the tech world, how's your experience been as a woman of color?
My experience as a woman of color, I think that I was one of the lucky ones because one, my company is quite diverse, but when I get on a client site, it's very obvious. One, I'm like one of the only people of color, and two, I'm one of the only women of color. It was a bit intimidating at first, but you have to just stand your ground and plant your feet and not be afraid to, hey, I'm a woman of color in tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you also spoke about going to hackathons, and I know like one daunting thing for me initially, even for a lot of people, was breaking in to start and creating some of those groups, or even coming in without that much like hackathon experience. So how do you navigate that?
So the scariest thing about hackathons to me at first were like, oh, I have to create something, and oh, I have to show it to people. Oh, it has to work.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to work. Sometimes it doesn't work, but the idea has to blossom. You have to be able to work as a team to come up with some type of solution and then not be afraid of presenting that solution no matter what. So, for example, my last hackathon was actually for work, and I was an MVP because we were using Power Apps, and I happened to be one of the resident Power App specialists.
Okay.
And
MVP?
MVP is most valuable player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we were building a Power App to do something with Azure. I actually don't remember, but it didn't work. But at the end of the day, we just took screenshots and we told them how it was supposed to work. And we were like, next iteration, it'll work.
Oh, okay. So just go ahead and
Just
work
try.
on it. Just try.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your favorite like hackathon project?
It had to be the Power Up one. So before we actually had a planning session, we were like, oh, we're going to create an Azure arm. We're going to do some of this, some of that, some coding. We'll do some front end work too. And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, what is an Azure arm? And then when I actually got there, we started solutioning out the whole project. And someone said, why don't you use a Power App? And that's when I was like, yes, why don't we? And I ended up going from not knowing anything to knowing a lot more than my team and being the player that actually helped everyone else figure out the solution. And it worked out.
Wow, That's pretty awesome. I know, just to, I guess, shift gears a little bit. So I know Avanade is a consulting company. Can you just, like, I guess, any of, like, our viewers that don't know what consulting is, can you just explain to them what you do and, like, just give, I guess, an overview of maybe your day-to-day or what, I don't know if there's ever, like, a typical week in a consultant.
So there's no such thing as a typical week for a consultant unless you're on the same project for a long time.
Okay.
A consultant is basically someone or a company, a consulting company is takes their employees, they put them in another company to help them solve their business problems. So if Grady needed a new software to help their nurses manage their patients, they would send someone like us to help develop that.
Okay. And with that, like, how often do you travel with that?
It really depends. So it depends on how long your project is. Right now, I've been on the same project for 8 months.
Okay.
But sometimes projects can be quick, maybe 3 months.
Okay.
But travel can get up to about 80%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when you change between all these different projects, do you stick to the same technology stack, or you have to, so it's just a learning?
No. It's always going to be a learning curve. So my first project, I didn't know anything. They told me, you're going to be a developer for Power App. I was like, what is a Power App?
Yeah.
And then they're like, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. I was like, okay. And so on the project, I actually learned what it was. I learned how to develop one, and here I am being one of the region's most well-rounded Power Apps developers. So the technology is always going to change, and you can't be in your comfort zone as a consultant.
That's really awesome. I guess speaking of change, I'm curious to find out, what are your plans in, like, the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see your career going, or is there, like, anything that you're working on that you want to expand upon?
So I definitely see myself in a leadership role. I want to try to become a Scrum Master.
Okay.
And see where that takes me, really. Still staying with Avanade, because Avanade is awesome, but yeah.
That's awesome. And then our last question is, do you have, like, any advice for any women or anyone that's looking at coming into computing, or just, like, any advice in general?
Just try, and don't be afraid of what the rest of the environment looks like. And I know right now it might not look like you, but one day it will. So just plant your feet and try.